Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Ball and Breakfast podcast with Wayne. I'm Patrick, coming to you with some baseball for tonight. We haven't covered the sport since the winter, talking about free agency. You can go into our vault, check it out on YouTube. We have a video there. Kind of talking about what we thought was going to happen with the White Sox. Definitely didn't come close to what we may have hoped or wanted or thought would happen. But, here we are, 3 months later in March, about to start opening day coming up next week. We did have some games in South Korea, but now those teams are going to be heading back to spring training, so it's a very screwy schedule for baseball overall. But without further ado, we'll go into our MLB preview for tonight. We're going to cover both leagues, American League and the National League, in full. We'll talk about playoffs and who we think are going to be in the championship series and the World Series, talk about winners, and then cover some of the most important awards. So I guess without further ado, maybe we could start over with Wayne. We'll just talk about the NL overall and, just kick it off.
Yeah, thanks, Pat. Yeah, definitely going to break down some of these divisional races a little bit and kind of go from there. So, starting off in the NL here, the NL West in particularly, I'm looking at kind of like bottom up to top. Rockies, yeah, they're not that good. I think they'll probably be finishing last in the entire MLB. Not too much to say about them. I feel like if they are able to not finish last, I think that'll be a great season for them. But everything, especially in this tough division, says they'll be finishing last. I don't know what they can get from Chris Bryant after he signed that contract. Hasn't been the best since he's done that. So hopefully he does play like a full season here. But yeah, honestly, but they do have some bright talent there with, Ezekiel Tovar and Brendan Rodgers, but there's just a lot I think that needs to kind of happen in order for them to, make some strides there. So Rockies got last there. Next up there is, I'm going to go with the Padres here. Padres, they lost Soto. I mean, they kind of traded him everything there, but they still have a lot of great talent there. They've had a lot of great talent for a while. It just seems like they've never been able to fully put it together there. Did add Dylan Cease this offseason from the White Sox, so didn't have the best season last season, but has showcased that he can be that kind of Cy Young ace. So having Dylan Cease, you Darvish, and Joe Musgrove, like that's a pretty stellar three-headed monster there. But I think the question marks are consistency, overall hitting, and again, in a very competitive division, it's kind of a lot to be asked for with regards to making that stride. Kind of one season removed from last season, where I think they were one of the top teams in terms of run differential, but that didn't translate to wins. So I have them here, finishing fourth, and then I got the Giants. Added Blake Snell. Coming off, like a Cy Young and everything. Granted, wasn't like the sexiest of Cy Youngs, but still won a Cy Young pairing with Logan Webb. Like that's one of the best, I think, pitching duos in all of baseball. So, and then also adding Jung Hoo Lee. I think he's going to be a great table setter there for Matt Chapman and Jorge Soler as well. So, a lot of great things to, I think, look for the Giants. I think they bounced back kind of from what they were last season. And then next I got the defending NL champs here, the Diamondbacks. Surprise team, I think, from last year. I was kind of eyeing them as to be a surprise team going into the season. So, but, added in Eduardo Rodriguez to, Zach Gallen, and then also Merrill Kelly. I think that's going to be a great pitching duo to kind of coincide with what they've been able to do on the offensive side. Another season under the belt for Corbin Carroll. So I feel like, hey, they can definitely take that next stride. I think they were the low 80s, if I was not mistaken, for wins this past season. So I think, maybe potentially they can get up to 90 there, something around that range. And then, lo and behold, the multi-billion-dollar pitching staff that we have here with the Dodgers. Signed Shohei Ohtani, also signed Yamamoto, and then also Glasnow. And it's like, yeah, what was this team's like biggest weakness last season? It was pitching, and then they have some overall just great hitters, to go with them too. Obviously led by Mookie Betts. So it's like, how can you not go with the Dodgers? I feel like with just kind of carrying what they had last season and then improving upon with the excellent pitching staff that is going to be here. So yeah, I don't know. For me, it was definitely, I think, easy to pick the Dodgers to win the NL West here. But yeah, Pat, I'll pause here. What do you think about my picks so far?
I think they're good picks. I have basically the same order. The only difference is flip-flopping Giants and Diamondbacks. That's a very small flip. I'm not even confident in myself. I feel like when I was ordering them, they are very comparable in terms of where they at, where they're at, how they're constructed, what they've done with their, starting pitching staffs. I actually heard, if it wasn't today, it was yesterday, but Eduardo Rodriguez had left his start with something in his elbow. I think that's a big deal. If he's out for a significant amount of time, that changes the way the Arizona Diamondbacks will kind of look going into the year because if you think about it, they went all the way to the World Series. Those arms, got many more innings, deep into October than most other clubs did. So I worry about guys like Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, like carrying big loads this year. But I'm actually very high on Brandon Pfaadt as well. Had a very tough rookie year, but was highly touted, but had an amazing postseason run and end of September. So if he can get to a level where he's pitching like an SP3 or, just carrying his own kind of load, 160, 170 innings or something of, 3-4 ERA ball, like that'd be huge for them. And, I like the additions that they got with, Jock Peterson. Eugenio Suarez strikes out a ton, but he's still a solid baseball player. I just feel like they did a little bit to pad themselves as defending NL champs. And yeah, no, I like the rankings. I think Dodgers are safe because they're so deep, especially in their hitting with elite hitters, and they've got some elite, pitchers up toward the top. Even if they get injured, they got enough depth there to keep them okay. And the reason why I think I picked the Giants is because of what you're saying. Like you get Logan Webb and Blake Snell as a 1-2 pairing at the top there. That's a really nice way to kind of lead your rotation. And they've got some other options like Jordan Hicks, Kyle Harrison's a rookie who looks pretty good. Could be that SP3 now that they're talking about, and they've got some other guys like Alex Cobb toward the end of the rotation where it's like they've got a little bit of depth themselves. So, you talked about the other free agent additions they have. I don't have to keep going on that, but yeah, I think the NL West is going to be super competitive. I wouldn't necessarily count out the Padres. I know they have probably a tougher hill to climb with a lot of the new faces they have there and a lot of holes across their lineup. But man, they still got a lot of talent on that roster.
Yeah, they got a lot of talent, and it's one of those. I would not be surprised, obviously, if they are able to just like kind of live up to their potential. But obviously, it's like losing Juan Soto. I think that's got to cost for something at least. Like he's such a great player there. Granted, did it make sense to do it? Yeah, but I think from a momentum standpoint, like a team chemistry standpoint, maybe that does take away a little bit of that confidence as a team. But yeah, like they do have a great pitching staff there. And yeah, I like what you mentioned. I think with regards to the Giants too. I think they do have a lot of pieces there to possibly then to supersede kind of what the Diamondbacks are able to do. So and then if Eduardo Rodriguez, if he misses like I don't know how severe the elbow injury is, right? But if he does miss like, maybe say the first month or something or 2 months, like that could definitely affect like just a couple wins here and there. So, and then, maybe the Giants do supersede that. So yeah, all good points. But I think everybody is like, I don't know. I'd be surprised if the Dodgers don't kind of just take away this division here though.
They really should. It's looking at the Padres from last year, there's that cautionary tale of like too much star power on one team. Like, does it get to certain guys' heads? Like, do they play down to the fact that they think they're great? Like sometimes super teams, especially in baseball, just don't pan out. But there's too much track record there for the Dodgers of just winning their division and at least getting to the playoffs with 100+ wins, where it's like I'm not really worried about them adding a couple of superstars. If anything, I'm more worried about them like now going over the top and like executing better and being more successful as a franchise.
Yeah. And I think everything is going to come down to the playoffs, right? Like if the Dodgers, some miracle, right? They finish second in their division. You kind of go through all the wild cards, but they win the World Series. Nobody's going to care. So in the end, it's going to amount to if they do kind of supersede whatever they do in the regular season. supersede in the postseason, whatever expectations they have there. So this is a team that just wants to win that World Series, in a full season. I know they won the World Series kind of in that, the COVID year and everything. So this just, I think, is just them trying to like, all right, we're going to pull on all. They were saving up their pennies and they're like, let's get Shohei, let's get Yamamoto, man. So yeah, they're going, I think, full on. All the chips are in there. So, but yeah, I think that's the NL West there. I guess moving on to we're going to head out maybe more east a little bit. Go start with the NL Central. So this is definitely going to be interesting. I think divisional race here. I think a lot of teams are, kind of up and coming. There's some momentum. There's not like one like monster team that's just taking over, right? Or similar to like what the Dodgers have been doing out there in the NL West. So let's start with the bottom here. I'm gonna go with the Brewers. No Craig Counsell. No Craig Counsell. No, they're missing. They're going to be missing their aces, or one of them, Woodruff, looks like he has right shoulder surgery, so he's gonna be missing the season. Corbin Burns, he's gone. Devin Williams, he's the stand-up closer. He's going to be missing some time. So, like, that was kind of their whole MO. So, like, I don't know how much Freddie Peralta can necessarily do. Like, I don't know, win all the games? No, right? So, obviously, I feel like they're going to be taking a little bit of a step back there. Hitting wise, like, there's been last year was kind of some question marks here and there with regards to their hitting, but now even more so. I feel like there's just even more question marks. So, I know they won the division last year, but the reasons why they won the division last year, they're just not there anymore. And I feel like their weaknesses of last year, they're going to be, kind of standing out a little bit more here. So yeah, I'm going to go Brewers last. If Yelich like has a kind of a renaissance type of year, maybe that definitely pushes them over a little bit. But yeah, there's just a lot of question marks I think with the Brewers right now to kind of go into the season. But then, yeah, like I was mentioning before, a lot of like young up and coming teams. The next I got is the Pirates. So O'Neal Cruz, like he could have a breakout season, I think, this year. This freakish athlete at shortstop, and he's got all the potential to do so. And he doesn't necessarily even have to be the focal point, right? They got Brian Reynolds, they got K'Bryan Reyes. Maybe he gets a little bit more power in his bat. Jack Sawinski as well. Like there's a lot of talent there in the lineup. You mix that with some pitching that I think obviously can take a next step. Think about like Mitch Keller. They also added Martin Perez as well, and obviously the big name out there is Paul Skenes, former number overall pick from this last year's draft. Throws 100. It just has the nasty stuff in the world. And then you also add vets like Michael Taylor at center field, and then Yasmani Grandal, who I think he's going to be kind of like a stopgap in a way, or someone to spell for Henry Davis, who has all the potential in the world. I think the spring training he's betting like 1,000. Add in Aroldis Chapman to the bullpen. Like this is a pretty good, I think, balanced team. Obviously, the question marks is the pitching staff and can they match the level of production that the lineup does, but I think that they'll be able to, score enough runs here to kind of help with that. And then the pitching will kind of just, be okay here and there. So next, I got the Reds. I think they built off kind of what they were doing last season. Last season they were pretty hot. They were pretty hot. I think pretty much until the All-Star break there. I think they were like in the number one in the division there, and then they kind of just faltered. So we'll see if Hunter Green becomes kind of the ace that I think a lot of baseball fans want to see out of him. So, he had like a 4-some-odd ERA last season, kind of in the high fours. And if he can get mid threes and kind of continue that production that he had in terms of like getting strikeouts and, getting whiffs, like I think this could potentially be like a nice breakout year for Hunter Green. And then that should definitely help propel the Reds here. But yeah, their lineup, one of the best in baseball, honestly. Like it's pretty crazy. Last year they had 11 players with 10 homers or more. This team can hit. They can hit. You got Spencer Steer, TJ Friedel, Will Benson, Jonathan India, Matt McClain. So they're just not short on bats, just figuring out where to put them in the lineup. So really going to be very much dependent, I think, in terms of how they progress from here, is going to be due to their pitching staff. Next, I got the Cardinals. I know last season I think we both predict them to finish like number one in this division, but they just sucked. Injuries, they could not get out of their heads, didn't have the momentum. And now, hey, look, they revamped their pitching staff pretty much from the top bottom there. I think adding a Sonny Gray, getting back Lance Lynn, Steve Matz, and Kyle Gibson too. That should definitely help bolster and eat innings for that for their pitching staff there. Miles McCullough, like that's a pretty good, I think, 1 of 5 there. So adding in a kind of a full year here with Jordan Walker, one of the best young talents I think in the game, along with some other decently young talents, Nolan Gorman, Lars Nootbaar, and then also really talented defensive player in Mason Wynn at shortstop. And then whatever production they can get from Paul Goldschmidt, the vets, Nolan Arenado, and Wilson Contreras, like that'll be great if they can just match like their normal average type of year. And I think if you add all those things, like this could be a very successful team here, bouncing back from I think they won like 71 games last season. So, and then I got on top of this division the Chicago Cubs. The Chicago Cubs in the north side here. This is the one team I think that unequivocally they got better. They got better. They got a lot. They are maintaining very much the same pieces that they had last season. With Justin Steele, who was kind of like a front runner for the MVP for a while, or the Cy Young for a while, adding in Shota Imanaga as well. Like that's a pretty good, and potentially what we can get from him. That's potentially a really great pitching staff. Adding in also obviously Kyle Hendricks there too. And then their lineup in general, Cody Bellinger coming back like year 2. We'll see what he can do. See if he takes it to the next level. Suzuki, Swanson, like some of the better players in their positions. And then also the up and coming star there, Pete Crow Armstrong. Like we'll see what type of production they can get out of him too. But there's just a lot of great things to look forward to, I think, for the Cubs. Oh, and they also stole the manager, Craig Counsell, from the Brewers. I part of me thinks like Craig Counsell, he kind of saw the writing on the wall was happening in the Brewers, and I don't know if he got like a whiff in the air of like, all right, we're gonna our pitching staff's not going to be the same next year, so we're probably going to suck a little bit, And then he was just like, all right, I got a better offer over there with the Cubs. Let me just go over there. They're on the rise, and Wrigley, it's a great place to win, I feel like. So yeah, that's my standings. I think I got for the NL Central here. Pat, what do you got? What do you think?
Yeah, man, this is going to be out of all the divisions in the NL, the weakest one, I think, just in terms of wins and losses. I think a lot of these teams are in the same ballpark as one another. I think any way you chalk it up would be acceptable to me, no matter how you rank order these teams, because they each have their pros and cons, but they don't really, set themselves apart from one another, in my opinion. But I guess I have the Reds, Cubs, Cardinals, Brewers, and Pirates in my ranking order. I like the Reds a lot because of what I think the rotation can be. When I looked at their 1-5 and down, looking at Hunter Green taking that step, Nick Lodolo being back, adding Nick Martinez from the Padres, who's just a solid veteran. Andrew Abbott had a great, rookie showing last year. I think he can, kind of build on that. I was hoping for Brandon Williamson to be around, but he got injured.
Frankie
But
Montas too.
I
I
think
think they added.
by
Yeah.
and large, they did add Montes. I'm a little skeptical. I mean, I hope he stays healthy for as long as he can, but he has not
Yeah.
pitched in the MLB for a little bit of time. I think I just liked their rotational depth more than any other team in this division. I liked everything I saw from their rookie hitting last year. They are going to come in with some injuries with Matt McLain being out. He could miss the entire year, from what I've heard. I hope it's not that long. And TJ Friedel is going to be out to start. But the thing I like about them is you can tell their stance and how they're going to go after this year. Like the second they heard McLean had that injury, they went out and acquired Santiago Espinal from the Blue Jays. It's like I can see them like understanding what their talent is and like trying to supplement it immediately. And it's going to be that kind of aggressive, gameplay from them that's going to keep them in it. But they have a lot of fun pieces around the diamond. Ellie De La Cruz. You mentioned a lot of the other guys. I mean, Jamer Candelario, they steal from the Cubs. Christian Encarnacio Strand is a big player to watch on first base. It's just they have all these prospects. It's too bad, Noel V. Marte got injured, or sorry, got the PED suspension for half his year now, and Edwin Arroyo, one of their younger prospects, got injured. He'll be out for the whole year too. So they've had some bad luck to start, but I still think they have enough talent there to get it done. Um, I won't talk about the Cubs. I think you covered them well. I think the Cardinals, the only thing I would say is they made a lot of starting pitching additions, and that was their, Achilles heel for sure last year. But then I look at the additions and I'm like, Sonny Gray is off injured and he's already coming in with a hamstring. Lance Lynn completely imploded last year. Kyle Gibson's been sitting at around a 5 ERA. Matz may start off in the bullpen. I'm just kind of like, these are all names, and they're all names that I think we should all be able to like trust. But maybe they're just at that points in their career where it's like things are going to kind of take that downswing. And they've been dealing with some injuries on the offensive side too. So they're like out with Tommy Edman to start the year. Lars Nootbaar may start on the injured list. I'm like, I like these guys. I like these names, but I'm like, man,
Yeah.
are they going to put it all together in time to win baseball games? That's my only worry.
Yeah, and they're all in their like 30s. Borderline twilight of their pitching careers, basically, with Sonny Gray and Lance Lynn. Lance Lynn, I think he's like 36 or something. So, and Kyle Gibson too, I think is a similar age. So it's like, yeah, you're depending on them, mid 30s people to basically pitch under 50 innings plus now. And it's like, yeah, that definitely is a tall order, I think. So, but part of me is a little bit bullish. See what they can get if they're able to kind of swing that. But I do agree. I think that is going to be tight, at least for me, in my opinion, between 2 and 3 there probably. But yeah, I just think that maybe in this case the Cardinals kind of edge it out. But I do agree, like this Reds team, like I would not be surprised if they do win the division or something, just because they have the talent. And it's like, yeah, you mentioned all the players that are hurt. Like, great, they got 3 other players that they can backfill that could potentially hit 10 plus homers there too. It's
Yeah.
like, oh no, we lost one like top prospect that is capable of hitting and having an OPS of like 700 plus, right? So a lot of great things I think for Reds fans there, and we'll see if they are able to make like deadline deals and things like that going into potentially the playoffs here.
Yeah. But of all the divisions, this is one of like my least certain calls on teams. So I could see this going any sort of way.
Yeah, it's definitely a good, I think, betting division, right? Because it's like, all right, maybe I feel pretty strongly that this team could potentially win it. Looking at the odds here, I say the Cubs are favorite, plus 185. Cardinals are second here, plus 190. Reds 350. So hey, that could be a really good, I think, bet there. To win the NL Central, and then Brewers and then Pirates. So a little bit surprised. Yeah, I think at least for me, yeah, maybe I'm not feeling too strong about the Brewers and their prospects this season, but yeah, that Reds, I think at plus 350, like that could definitely be something to take there. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like the Cubs, like it's their division to lose at the moment. So yeah,
Sounds good.
yeah. I guess here, moving on a little bit more east to the NL East here. Looking or starting at the bottom here. I got your hometown team here right now, the Washington Nationals. They're honestly just too young. They're honestly just too young, I think, is the biggest thing. Like they've gotten a lot of great prospects, obviously from all the trades of the top level talent that they've had. But yeah, it's just too soon, I think, with regards to the developments at the moment. We'll see what they can get from Mackenzie Gore, CJ Abrams. I think obviously those are like the 2 core players I think they're going to be focused on, and then yeah, I know they got a bunch of other prospects that will probably be playing coming up here. So yeah, just kind of a another season just for them to just marinate on the young talent there. Moving on to the Marlins. Yeah, I got the Marlins coming up here next. Just a lot of question marks, I think. Sandy Alcantara looks like he's gonna be missing this season due to Tommy John surgery. So that's going to be, I think, a big. I mean, that's like their Cy Young essentially. Their Cy Young person there. I don't know how much Luzardo can do, or this is kind of like just a kind of a major blow there. I feel like so. They did get Tim Anderson. They are going to have a full season of like Jake Berger, and then obviously Luis Arraez is there, Mr. Hits. So they do have some talent there, but yeah, I think a lot of question marks in regards to their overall direction of the team. They did get rid of Kim Ng as well, and it's like, what exactly is happening up there? And sometimes I think that kind of has like a bottom to top or top to bottom effect there that isn't maybe always seen. So yeah, I got the Marlins kind of taking a step back here. And then a team I see maybe taking a little bit of a step forward, the Mets actually here. So hey, look, they got some young talent. They got some young talent there with Francisco Alvarez. I think he's in terms of their lineup, like that's a pretty solid lineup. Him in the middle there with obviously Francisco Lindor and Pete Alonso. So pitching staff might have some questions overall, but I think that they can get the job there. Pete Alonso, this is his final year on his contract, so a lot of people are projecting, hey, maybe this guy hit clubs like 50 homers or something. So he could have probably like an MVP kind of year. And maybe that carries the Mets a little bit in terms of the wins. So I got the Mets here finishing third. And then, yeah, the battle of these two teams here, it's kind of been happening like this the past couple of seasons. I still got to go with the Phillies finishing second here. But again, that doesn't necessarily tell about what's going to happen in the postseason. So yeah, Phillies here, but who knows? Healthy Bryce Harper, for this future Hall of Fame phenom talent, right? They still, essentially have the same squad as last year, so they can definitely build upon what they did in the postseason last year. But this Braves team, I feel like there's just like a nice line of like the Phillies are built for the playoffs, but the Braves are very much built to like win in the regular season. So, I think they kind of just continue on that. I guess they're both those DNAs here. Then obviously the Braves, one of the best rosters up, down, left, right that they have out here. That lineup is just nuts. Obviously led by MVP Ronald Acuna and then Olsen as well. Albies. So there's so much talent, I think, on that roster. Pitching staff, potential Cy Young and Strider. I think he's the favorite to win. We could definitely talk more about that later. But they did add Chris Sale there. We'll see what type of production they can get. That's an interesting thing that they did there, trading that young talent player Vaughn over there. But obviously Vaughn, he was kind of too talented to be kind of sitting on the bench a little bit for the Braves. So Chris Sale, if he's able to get maybe like 70% of what he's been able to do, I think that's totally fine for them, and especially for the postseason. That would be great, right? Like, I'd almost feel like, hey, Chris Sale, sit the first half of the season. Let's just get you ready maybe for the postseason, and then yeah, he's had some postseason success. He can obviously throw it, so I might advise them to kind of just do something like that. So yeah, I think the top two, those are usually the staples there. But yeah, Pat, what do you think about my NL East picks here?
Same order. I was hard pressed on the divisional winner there because I'm just as bullish on the Phillies as I am on the Braves. I mean, I tried to really critically look at both rosters and think about who's got the upper hand here. It is very close. I mean, I think they both come into this year with improved rotational depth. I think they have very good bullpens. Their hitting is just kind of out of this world for both clubs. I think that the Braves just position by position maybe have an edge at most of the spots. So I kind of gave it to him in that sense. Perhaps a better bench too. But it's close. And I just think these teams are kind of shoe-ins to make the playoffs. And I'm with you with the Chris Sale point. I think that, if you look around the league, there are a lot of starting pitchers where I think their clubs are going to be very cautious about how they use them this year. When you think about, Bueller and Kershaw and Scherzer and DeGrom and, Sale and others, I just think, you want to make sure that you're, getting them at their most important points and, winning the regular season. You want to get into the playoffs, but in a lot of ways, I think clubs are now starting to, sign guys, starting pitchers. They're trying to get 7 to 8 starting pitchers, on their roster in order to kind of, make up for, games that could be missed along the way. So, but yeah, I mean, I think the Braves are protected in that sense if Sale happens to go down. So we'll just have to see. I mean, but yeah, the way you kind of put it, I mean, I would have loved to put the Marlins up a little bit higher. But they just lost so many of their starting pitchers when you go, Alcantara, Yuri Perez, Edward Cabrera is injured, Max Meyer may or may not start this year. It's just like man, they just had a lot of bad luck. And like you were saying with the organization, it's completely dysfunctional. So it's just hard to get, kind of rallying behind your own franchise like that when there's so much turnover and there's just not a lot of long term you know foresight for the players or the staff or both.
Yeah, I mean the Marlins, like if they had, I guess, better. I mean, obviously health is one thing, right? But if they just had better management up there, it would just feel like, okay, what happened last season? Like, not many people predicted what would have happened last season. They kind of took a step forward, albeit like it wasn't Alcantara's best season. Coming off his Cy Young, but obviously now he's hurt, and then yeah, you talked about Yuri Perez as well, like one of the best young arms in the game, and yeah, there's just a lot of question marks, I think, for that organization. So, we'll see kind of what happens there. I don't know. Tim Anderson has an MVP year, kind of a comeback year. I don't know if that helps, but yeah, there's just a lot of question marks, I think, for that Marlins team, which is unfortunate because yeah, it seems like obviously Jazz, like he's one of the most exciting players out there. Was on the cover of MLB The Show 2023. So yeah, it's kind of sad to, I guess, see that type of talent wasted there. But hey, he'll probably be traded to the Yankees or eventually or something like that. So can't be too mad about that, I guess.
For
Yeah,
sure.
cool.
Well, I guess you rounding out the NL there, I can kind of turn it over to the AL side of things. I'll go, in the same order you went. I'll go over to the AL West, kick it off. In the basement, we're gonna have the Oakland, Salt Lake City, Sacramento, North, California Athletics there. At the bottom, just a franchise that's completely in flux, terrible ownership, don't even have a home really to call for themselves over the next few years yet. Looking around the roster, it's been a roster that's just it's really been a long-term rebuild, and it's just been not moving at a pace that I think is really encouraging either. I think guys like Zach Geloff are interesting. Shea Langoliers, a catcher, has that kind of next level upside, I think. Esteury Ruiz is stealing bases left and right. If you can get to 80 to 100 bags this year, that'd be huge. His hit tool isn't that great. With it, but Brent Rooker had a encouraging kind of late bloom season last year for the first half, and then kind of faded toward the end. So it's a checkered roster and needs a lot of work. The pitching staff, JP Sears looks competent, but still his numbers aren't really good enough. I'm kind of I think Ken Waldichuk starts out on the injured list. It's just the best pitcher that I think they're coming with is Mason Miller, and it feels like he's going to be a high leverage arm in their bullpen and not really the starting pitching prospect that I think they truly want him to be. So I think that's kind of tough. And Paul Blackburn's a veteran. He's okay, but it's just not enough. So they're in my cellar. Next, I got the Angels. You lose Shohei Ohtani. That's a huge blow, both to your pitching staff and, you're the middle of your order there. The replacements that they kind of brought in were mostly bullpen. I think the hitting, it's led by Mike Trout when he plays, but over the last few seasons, he's barely gotten over, 100, 120 games a year. Love the talent, but it just feels like injuries are kind of derailing his career. He's reminding me a lot of Albert Pujols and Ken Griffey Jr., and it's really sad. But it's just not something I can count on year in year out. The next highest paid guy they got is Anthony Rendon, who's just a shell of himself for what he was in Washington. I mean, the whole offseason was kind of a joke with all of his commentary, and he's kind of been that way since he got to LA. But that's just another problem. Like that just creates a lot of locker room issues, and there's going to be a disgruntled core group in there that's actually trying hard, trying to make that push toward the playoffs, and you got a guy like that who's just not committed. That's kind of a cancer for your entire locker room. And yeah, man, I mean, go around the diamond. I think they do have other kind of bright spots. Patrick Sandoval is a competent starter. I think everyone's waiting for Reed Detmers to kind of take that next step as a starter too. They've got some stuff that they can kind of look toward. I know like Nolan Chenal at first base is interesting. but it's just not enough to really get me excited in a pretty competitive division. The Rangers, hopefully they get Corey Seager back by opening day. Marcus Semien is a complete stud at second base. He's consistent. He's in the lineup every day. Loved seeing Evan Carter last year in the playoffs toward the end of the year, kind of being that on base guy, great defender. Looks like Wyatt Langford might break the opening day club. He's been just amazing in spring training. He's one of the best prospects in baseball. I expect really big things from him right away. I mean, almost to the level of a Corbin Carroll. So I think he'll be great. Adolis Garcia battling some injuries, but he may be back. At some point soon. I just think you go around from what they did to get into the World Series, win it all. They've got a lot of those pieces back, but some are hobbled. I know they're going to be without their first baseman Nate Lowe for a little bit, so little things like that. And then you look at the rotation. That's going to be the biggest thing that's got holes in it. No Scherzer, no DeGrom for quite a bit of time. I think Scherzer is on a June timeline. I think DeGrom's in an August one. The rest of the rotation, they signed Michael Lorenzen today, which is really, a good boost. I think he, is a middle of the rotation type of guy, but is it enough to compete with who I think are going to be the top two spots? And just frankly, I don't. And for that reason, I have them, in the third place spot. But my second place spot, I've got the Seattle Mariners. This is a team that I think has the best pitching staff in all of baseball. Going through their one through three, I don't think there's a lot of clubs that stack up the way that they do. With Castillo, Kirby, and Gilbert, and then they come at the back of the rotation with two younger prospects in Wu and Bryce Miller. They've also got Emerson Hancock that's like pushing for that 5-6 spot, kind of like that swingman type role, and then they just got a ton of high leverage arms in that bullpen. So they're pretty much like ironclad when it comes to pitching and what I think they'll do over the course of the year. But the one thing that I thought Seattle missed on was adding some more impact hitters. I mean, I feel like it was more subtraction than addition this year, and they didn't add like another bat or two that I think are really impactful bats. I mean, they made kind of like a lateral trade with bringing back Mitch Haniger. I think overall they got rid of Eugenio Suarez. They're going to replace him over at third base by Josh Rojas. I mean, I just don't think that's like a good enough answer. Jorge Polanco comes over at second base, who adds a little bit of the on base prowess that you kind of want for that team. But it feels like a lot of mediocre hitters, surrounding Julio Rodriguez, who's still in his own development. He still strikes out a ton, doesn't walk as much, but just definitely puts up his counting stats. But I would say I think Seattle is all in this year. I think it's the type of club that, Jerry Dipoto will be aggressive at the deadline. He can maybe bring over a hitter or two to kind of supplement everything. And as long as that pitching staff stays healthy and keeps them in games, like they're going to be good and they're going to be good enough to grab wild card spots. I've got them at least going into the playoffs there. And then at the top, it's the Houston Astros. I mean, it's kind of boring and it's kind of like the same old thing, but it's so hard for me to look at that roster and not put them at the top because they're going to start without Verlander, but they still come back with, Valdez, Javier, Hunter Brown had a pretty good year last year. They are a little bit thinner at the end of the rotation, so it's going to be interesting to see if JP France or Ronel Blanco can step up, before Verlander gets back or McCullers or any of the other guys, maybe Urquidy. But the bullpen is lights out like it's always been. And then when I just look at that hitting lineup, like 1 through 9, there are not many holes. I think Jake Myers is probably my only exception in center field, but you go around the diamond. Abreu probably is like in his twilight years at this point too, but looking at like Yanni Diaz kind of stepping up at catcher, and then you got Jordan, you got Tucker, you got Altuve, Bregman, even Jeremy Pena, like Chas McCormick had a good year last year. So they're kind of the cream for me. So I put them up at the first spot. But Wayne, I want to hear your reaction to the AL West standings.
Yeah, I got the same one. I got the same, the same order there, I think. But yeah, I think the Rangers, you mentioned it. Just a lot of question marks, injuries. Obviously, was it worth it? I guess. They won the World Series first time in franchise history, so that's great. But obviously now aren't able to sign like a Jordan Montgomery, right, which would have been great for the rotation. And I think he's still out. I think he's still kind of roaming around or something. So yeah, like maybe they just signed him, right? Like, hey, bro, like can you just get like a short term deal or something like that? So, but yeah, like everything you mentioned, I'm pretty much in agreement there. In a way, I feel like this is like the most sure rankings of any of the divisions. I feel like just because you feel like, all right, the Athletics barrel, and then the bottom of the barrel there, and then the Angels kind of the bottom of the barrel, but better than the Athletics. And then you have a team like the Rangers, who a lot of talent, but then there's a lot of missing pieces. So, and who knows if they're able to kind of persevere through all that throughout a long season. And then you got the Mariners too, who one of the best players in all of baseball, and Julio Rodriguez on the offensive side of the ball, have some potential bats to hit homers and get on base basically for Rodriguez to help bat him in, and obviously just create runs in general there. But obviously also one of the best pitching staffs in all of baseball, I think, 1 through 5. So a lot of great, a lot of wins can just come from that, I think. And then some timely hitting there. I think like a Ty France, I think he kind of bounces back, I feel like. So a bat like that can definitely help Julio Rodriguez in that team, I think. And and then obviously the top of the division here, the Astros. I don't know when they're going to take like a step back. I don't know if it's this season. I don't think so. But yeah, they just have way too much talent, I feel like, from their lineup, a decent pitching staff, not necessarily dominant, like you were saying, like, Verlander kind of coming in later, which totally makes sense. That's exactly what I think Chris Sale ought to be doing. So, overall, I think I agree with your analysis. And again, I feel like this is the most sure type of standings. Like if I were to parlay or bet on this, like I would. But yeah, this is, I think, is probably the most concrete divisional race here.
Gotcha. Moving to the Central, we're going to start at the bottom, and we're both repping the gear of the team that will be holding that bottom spot, according to my rankings. But got the White Sox. I think after the off season and looking at the Dylan Cease trade and all the other non signees that they didn't bring back. I mean, probably for good reason, kind of moving forward from some of the baggage we were carrying from last year. But with the Cease trade, felt a little underwhelming. I think Drew Thorpe is a prospect that I think he's in the top 100, has great minor league numbers, but I think a lot of folks are questioning his stuff and whether or not he'll play at the major league level. I think the other interesting prospect is, bringing over the young kid Andrew Zavala. He's only 18 though, so it's going to take a while for us to really realize what his true potential is, even if he is everything and more. So that's a little bit of the downside of the trade. I think we were expecting a little bit more of a boost to our major league roster with the Cease deal, and I don't really think it's going to provide that, at least in 2024. But looking around, they wanted to emphasize defense. They wanted to emphasize speed. I think they're able to accomplish that in their own right, but I don't think it's going to translate to much offense, much, winning and things like that. And looking at the pitching staff, it's a lot of minor league type of deals for these folks, like second chances for a lot of the starters. Garrett Crochet is their opening day starter. Hasn't really started a game, I don't think, for a couple of seasons now. I don't know what his innings limit will even be if he's outstanding, and he has been that in spring training. But man, I could go on for 20 minutes with the White Sox. I'm not going to do it, not right now, but they're in my basement. The next team is actually a team that I think is getting a lot of praise for their offseason and like what people think are on the rise with the Kansas City Royals. But I'm looking at a roster that I still feel like has a lot of holes to it. I think the rotation depth that they added was good. I think having guys like Waka and Lugo in your rotation are definitely good things, but surrounding them is just a lot of the junk that came from last year. So looking at guys like Brady Singer, I think Jordan Lyles has been pushed to their bullpen to start. I think they're going to go with Alec Marsh as their fifth starter. Just feels a little bit sloppy. Doesn't feel like there's much to really get behind besides those two veterans, currently in that rotation. And then I love Bobby Witt. I love what he can bring to the game. I think he's a star already. I think he's only going to be that and more for the rest of his career. But we have to look and see if Vinny Pasquantino can have a bounce back, year from an injury. Can Salvador Perez, keep himself relevant as he gets, deeper into his 30s now? Just kind of going around the diamond, there's a lot of guys that, are unproven. I mean, Michael Massey, Drew Isbell in center. Like, we just don't really know what these guys are going to be just yet. So I just think there are other clubs in, the AL Central that a little bit more polished, a little bit more proven, and just have more for me to get excited about. So, kept them there in fourth place. I got the Tigers in third. Like the Royals, I wanted to get a little bit more bullish about them, but I'm still a little skeptical about the rotation. I think Tarek Skubal is going to have a great year, but I also worry about his injury history and whether or not he can hold up over the course of 162 games. I think for the ones that he does, he'll be lights out, but we'll just have to see what else he can do. Jack Flaherty, Kenta Maeda, guys that have had really great seasons in the past. I don't know where they currently stand. I don't know how much you can trust them going into the year. And then you got bounce back guys like, Casey Mize, Matt Manning. Like, we'll see what they bring to the table. Jackson Joby is a guy that most are excited about in Detroit coming up from the minors as a pitcher, but you just don't know what kind of innings he can provide, so far. And I think offensively, like Spencer Torkelson had a great, last year as a power hitter. I think he's definitely on the rise to like proving himself. I think Riley Green put together a pretty competent year. I think folks are expecting a lot more out of him. Colt Keith at second base is young. Looks like a nice prospect for them. We'll have to see like where it kind of all, plays out for him as well. I think my just analysis is like, I think they're trending in the right direction as a club. I just think there's more work to do. And I think there's just more time to kind of let pass by before I'm ready to like commit them to being playoff contenders. So I've got them in third. In second, and a team that I'm bullish about, I already talked about it, and I had to review this one extra hard because I wanted to put them in first, but I just couldn't do it. The Cleveland Guardians, for me, are going to be a very competitive team this year. I like the rotation a lot. I think, you go Bieber, McKenzie, um, Bybee, Logan Allen, and you got Gavin Williams, who may start off on the injured list, but backing up with Carlos Carrasco and then Espino coming up from the minors too at some point. I feel like they are pretty set, within their rotational depth. They usually come with a good bullpen. I think they've got one of the better ones in the AL, so it's another thing that plays, to their advantage. I think where they fall a little short is the offensive side of the ball. I love J Ram, obviously. Josh Naylor on a game-to-game basis is a really good player. His little brother, Bo Naylor, as a catcher is exciting. I mean, I just want to see what he does, going into this year. And, overall, I just think, they're pretty thin on the rest of their hitting crew. I feel like, Stephen Kwan, I shouldn't leave him out because I think he's a great on base guy, but they're waiting for guys like Chase, DeLauder to come up. Kyle Manzardo is another prospect of theirs that's like really exciting, but I think they'll come up in the second half of the year, and I think this is why I've got them as one of my wild card teams because I'm really, really excited about Cleveland. But I just have to wait and kind of see how this year plays out before I'm ready to commit bigger things to them. And then in my top spot, which I think most folks do, are the Minnesota Twins. I think that offense is pretty solid. I mean, you're going around the diamond with guys like Royce Lewis, Carlos Correa. Hopefully Buxton has a better year. Ryan Jeffers was good as a catcher. They brought over Carlos Santana. Max Kepler's been there. He's done some good things. I just think they're a pretty established group when you look at, some of the talent that they have, around the diamond. In the rotation, I think, Bailey Ober taking a step, Joe Ryan taking a step. Pablo Lopez was great last year. I think Louis Varland can definitely hold his own as a back of the rotation guy. Worried about the Joan Duran injury. I think that's going to be a big one for them. We'll see who kind of steps up to take his role as a closer for a while. But overall, I think there is enough there. Part of me really still wants to put Cleveland in first, but I just can't do it. So that's my 1 through 5. And Wayne, what do you think?
Man, oh man. I'm with you there. I'm with you there with the Guardians versus I think the Twins. I think part of me wants to believe in what the Tigers are doing, but I feel like they don't have enough firepower and the pitching staff, bullpen, kind of that combination there. So that's where I feel like the Guardians and the Twins with Pablo Lopez. Like I feel like Shane Bieber there with the Guardians. Like I feel like that's where they just have a lot more strength there. So but yeah, I'm with you there. Kind of been back and forth on all this a little bit, but yeah, I'll go with you. I'll go with you. I kind of agree with you. I really like having I think Royce Lewis kind of being like out there, and we'll see what if Byron Buxton can just play like a fairly full season as well. Just I know he's I think doing more designated hitter duties, which is very interesting because he was always known as like that speedy outfielder that just catches everything, but now he's been just kind of resorting more towards that now. So, but yeah, I like what the Twins are doing. I just really do. I think last season, I remember going to the playoffs. I was like, I had them as like my sleeper pick there. So, a little disappointed kind of how that all turned out. But man, like there's a lot of excitement I think with what they're doing with the Twins. Having an ace in Pablo Lopez and obviously Carlos Correa and Royce Lewis, Byron Buxton, the rest of the crew there. So yeah, I just got to go with them. But yeah, like you were mentioning, the Guardians, just a lot of excitement there. Um, I was also looking at the odds just in general of like teams of who's favored to kind of win this. I think Twins are overly are the overall favorite. I think it's like a minus like 112 or something. But then interesting enough, the Tigers and the Guardians are both tied. I think at plus 350, right? And then obviously the long shots with the White Sox. I think they're like last, I think plus 4,000, and then the Royals or something. So, but yeah, I agree. I think just overall sentiments, I just feel like, yeah, if the Twins are going to be dethroned between say the Guardians or the Tigers, albeit the Tigers, they've added some talent there. I just think that the Guardians just are a little bit more polished, and yeah, McKenzie, I think he got hurt last season too, so now hopefully fully healthy. He's been I think one of the top young pitchers I think in the game when he's on, right. So we'll see if he can kind of continue on what he was building from last season.
Yeah. No, I'm with that. I also think, Minnesota's, just prospect depth. They've got Brooks Lee coming up, David Festa as a pitcher. I mean, I think there's some guys that are really interesting in their minor league system that would only supplement any sort of, injuries to the roster. And, they did cut back some payroll, but I'd imagine if they're in the race kind of toward the deadline, they might add, a veteran bat or something like that just to get them over the hump or whatever else it could be. So we'll just have to see. But in this last division, this one was also pretty tough, just based on these teams and their histories and just the competitiveness that usually comes out of the AL East. But the Red Sox are in the basement for me. They've lost some guys to trades, to injury, to whatever else it is. But the way their rotation's kind of stacked up, looking at Bello, Hawk, Whitlock, a couple other guys, I feel like, just kind of mid-tier, younger guys are just kind of still unproven. Names are going over my head just sitting here right now, but overall, like looking at that 1 to 5, it's just it's not enough to get confident in. I mean, a lot of those guys feel like, the fourth, fifth options, and they're in a very good rotation. So just underwhelming in that sense. Kenley Jansen kind of feels like he might be just somebody will be traded at some point soon. Beyond him, I'm not really excited about their bullpen either. And then just kind of going around the diamond, overall, I just feel like Rafael Devers is the guy who's going to carry the load for the Red Sox in a lot of ways. They're looking for guys to step up in different positions. Can Trevor Story, come back and have a good year? After many with injuries, Sedan Rafaela is kind of starting off in center field for them. Second base is pretty much wide open. Maybe Tristan Casas has a big year. He had definitely a great second half last year, but just too much around the diamond that I'm just not confident in with this team, and just with the way ownership's gone about this offseason and the lack of aggressiveness. It just feels like they're intending to rebuild. So, they've definitely got my last place spot here. Number 4 may come as a surprise, but for me, it's going to be the New York Yankees. Shocking as it may sound, just based on what they did over the offseason and how all in they were. I am definitely worried about Garrett Cole. I think that when I hear elbow injury and the fact that they're trying to assess it, they're trying to see if he may be able to avoid surgery, may wait things out and start a program, this and that. To me, I just feel like they're delaying the inevitable. I don't have a lot of faith that his elbow is going to come back. I feel like it had been bothering him through spring training up until the present. Like, for me, if you take Garrett Cole out of that rotation, that's just I'm worried. I'm worried if I'm the Yankees, and they have been in talks with Jordan Montgomery. That's a necessity at this point. Like, you need to go out and make a deal with that guy because Stroman has injury concerns, inning concerns. Rodon, you can never know what you're going to get out of Carlos Rodon. I mean, he can be great when he's on, but he can also be completely out. And we've seen him get injured and miss all full seasons and things like that. Cortez is kind of coming on a bounce back. We're just not really sure. And already I feel like with the batting order, at least LeMahieu's out, Rizzo's coming back from his own concussion issues. The prospects that they think they were counting on haven't really stepped up, like a Peraza, Cabrera, to really cement themselves. I think Soto and Judge are going to be absolute studs. Judge also at times has his own injury concerns to kind of worry about. I do like Verdugo. I think he's a solid OBP guy. But I think just kind of taken all together, Giancarlo Stanton kind of can be up and down or, in and out of the roster too. It's just, there's just too much uncertainty there for me to get excited about. I think Soto is going to have a banner year going into free agency. Like, he's gonna be the most exciting player in the American League, in my opinion. But yeah, it may be a bullish take, but I've got the New York Yankees finishing 4th. Finishing 3rd, and they're on the cusp for me of being that 4th place squad as well. But too much recent history for me kind of outweighs their ability to fall too far down those standings. But I got the Tampa Bay Rays coming in 3rd place. Very unimpressed with that rotation, but sometimes I've gone into years where I'm very unimpressed with that rotation or that team, and they just shock the hell out of me. And they find ways to build new guys, build new, pitchers of their ilk, and man, they're usually pretty dominant once they get into their clutches. So you lose guys like Shane McClanahan, Drew Rasmussen, Jeffrey Springs from last year. Now you go in with Savale, Eflin. They're going to be without Taj Bradley, so they're going right to like Zach Little, Ryan Pepio, who they brought over from the Dodgers for Glasnow. Like, it's not the prettiest looking rotation. I love their bullpen. Their roster, they're down Wander Franco, which is a big deal. They could bring up Junior Caminero as a big prospect of theirs, but hoping that like Yandy Diaz, Arozarena, bringing back Brandon Lowe, Isaac Paredes. Hopefully these guys can like piece it together enough to keep this team competitive. But it's not that I'm saying that without my own doubts. Like, I have a lot of doubts about how talented this club can be, but it's just like the Tampa Bay way. I just feel like they're going to find a way to be gritty and competitive. But I do think there's going to be more of like a 500 type of season for me than like pushing playoffs or anything spectacular. So I'll leave it at that. My number 2 squad is the Toronto Blue Jays. I really like the addition of Justin Turner. I think they need veteran playoff experience type guys who can still produce at this level to be on that club. I like the fact that they brought back Kiermaier. They signed Joey Votto to a minor league deal. They need more guys like this who are veterans that can kind of push Vlad Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, maybe a Kevin Biggio in the right direction as players. George Springer is another guy who should carry like a lot of that weight this year, and Dalton Varsho needs to have a bounce back year out and left. They've got enough talent around the diamond for their offense to be a force, and we're just all kind of waiting for them to put it all together. In their rotation, Gausman is the biggest worry that I have. Hearing, coming into the year, I think is his shoulder. hopefully it's not something that's going to keep him out. It sounds like he could be ready for opening day, but whenever I hear a big injury like that, like a just news about it for a guy, it kind of worries me. But if he was to go down, they still got Barrios, Bassett, and Kikuchi. They could bring up Ricky Tiedemann, who's one of their top prospects. They signed Yariel Rodriguez, and they've got Alek Manoah too, who knows what he can be, but he's still there. So I think they've got enough on the roster in place there to be a competitive enough team. I think they can get to the playoffs, at least according to my rankings, and I got them at 2. And then number 1, team that won it all, for that division last year, the Baltimore Orioles, very young, savvy, type of club, very deep with young talent and some good, mid-career type pieces with like Santander, Hayes, Mullins, Mountcastle, other guys like that, kind of helping the younger core, get established at the pro, level with Rushman, Gunnar Henderson. They're going to bring up Jackson Holiday. They got Jordan Westberg. They could be bringing up Colton Cowser, Heston Jerstad. They've got Kobe Mayo. They've got a lot coming up. They've got a lot of exciting, hitters in that, that mix. It's just going to be fun. It's going to be fun to see this offense, these players all come together. If they can weather a lot of offensive injuries and still be okay, which is a really good luxury to have. And that Corbin Burns trade was money. I mean, that was the finishing piece. I feel like they needed to just, kind of cement, their standing, as a playoff team at the very least, in my opinion. The Kyle Bradish injury worries me. Luckily, they've got Grayson Rodriguez. Hopefully, John Means is okay. Tyler Wells, Dean Kramer, like they can handle that back half, of the rotation. They've got Colt Irvin there if they need him. Kimbrell's their new closer, takes the place of Felix Bautista, but they still got Yenier, Cano, other guys, I think, make that bullpen deep enough. So Baltimore to me is a team to definitely watch this year, but, definitely my AL East, champs, I guess, for this year.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great breakdown. I think at least for me, the only differences were, I think you mentioned before, yeah, I had the Yankees ahead of the Rays here. I do have my doubts, and it is one of those things where it always feels like the Rays, they're always in it, but I feel like, yeah, with just the amount of talent that they've lost this past offseason, I feel like they do take a step back. Grant, yes, it is warranted. It is nice, or it should be warranted that if the Yankees do lose Garrett Cole for maybe potentially a couple months, if the season, like, yeah, they need a Jordan Montgomery, right? I think they do sign Jordan Montgomery. I feel like the Yankees, with all the resources they have, they're like, yeah, there's a couple pitchers here and there we can just sign. Let's sign them. Let's make sure that those deals get done. And then with that hitting squad, I feel like they do take maybe somewhat of a step there. I think it's just having that confidence of Juan Soto and then obviously Aaron Judge there. I feel like that's kind of enough. And then hopefully somewhat healthy Anthony Rizzo as well. I think that should help out. Just generate runs there overall. So, but yeah, in terms of like, I guess the top 2 there with regards to the Blue Jays and the Orioles, it's like, yeah, man, it's definitely going to be a tough one, I think, up there. I do like the pitching staff of the Blue Jays, but yeah, like you were mentioning, some injuries concerns, possibly Gossman there, who I think is one of the favorites to win the Cy Young here. So, and then obviously this ultra talented and improved Orioles team, adding in an ace there with Corbin Burns, like that's a great trade. That's exactly what you need to be doing when you're trying to contend, is getting like a Cy Young type of player. So I think that's great. I think they're making the right strides there, and then yeah, they're going to add in the best prospect in baseball, basically. Like that's going to be interesting what happens there. Like this kind of has like that 90s Yankees when they added Derek Jeter there too, right? I feel like, so not to say that that's going to happen exactly, but it kind of has those vibes of just this ultra talented team, then adding in a top young prospect there at shortstop. Who knows what can happen there. So but yeah, I do like, I think, your picks, but yeah, for me, I'm going to be a little bit more bullish on the Yankees here.
Gotcha. I think that's fair. Yeah. So overall, just ranking the playoff teams that I have on both sides. But then go to the AL. Got the Astros in my 1 seed, Orioles in my 2 seed, Twins as my 3 seed. And then my 3 wild cards, I got the Mariners at 4, Blue Jays at 5, Guardians at 6. In the NL, I've got the Dodgers at the 1 spot, Braves at 2, Reds at 3. My 3 wildcards, I've got the Phillies at 4, Giants at 5, and Diamondbacks at 6. Wayne, please share your order as well, and then we can break down our championship series and our World Series.
Yeah. So let's see, what do I got? Uh I got Dodgers and Diamondbacks. And then I also got the Giants coming out of the NL West there. And then I got Braves and Phillies East, and then yeah, I just got the one here with the Cubs here out of the Central for the NL there. So, and then I guess moving on to the AL, yeah, I got both the Orioles and the and the Toronto Blue Jays there coming out of the AL East. So sorry, Yankees fans. And then out of the AL Central, I have the I guess the lone team there out of the AL Central. I got the Minnesota Twins, and then out of the AL East, I got the I didn't do the seedings here, but yeah, the Astros, the Mariners, and then also the Rangers there. So I think those are my playoff teams there.
Sounds pretty good. Yeah, we can kind of bypass the whole setup to the wild card round, divisional round, everything like that. But who would you say for your ALCS, NLCS are going to be your representing teams?
Yeah, so for the AL championship, I got the. I'm gonna go the Orioles. I think they built off of what they had last season, and I think they needed that, right? I feel like any young team, as ultra talented as them, just needs some sort of playoff test, get their ass kicked, and then reload. I think for the next season, I think that's what they did and what was kind of necessary for them there. And then I hate to do it, but yeah, I got the Astros. I think the Astros, they come back, they kind of come back with some vengeance there. They're kind of familiar with this whole scenario too, so it's just kind of the time old tale for this team there, just being in the playoffs and contending there. So yeah, AL I got Orioles and Astros, and then out of the NL, I'm gonna go with Braves and Dodgers. I think, sorry the Philly fans, but I feel like this Braves team, like I think they kind of needed some sort of, I guess, expectations coming in and then not meeting those expectations, being like one of the winningest teams of all time, last season. And then now it's like, hey, great. We got that taste, those expectations out a little bit. This is a team that has won a World Series in the past with similar members of that team kind of still being here. So I feel like, yeah, this team, I think, just comes in with a little bit lower expectations, but with a chip on their shoulder there. And then, have to go, with the Dodgers. I feel like with that. So I don't know, just a lot of talent there, I think, from the Dodgers side. So, but yeah, those are my two teams for both of the respective leagues here.
Gotcha. At least on my side, I'm going to agree with you in the AL. I've got the Baltimore Orioles as one of my teams there. I think it's too much depth, throughout their lineup. The rotation looks really good. Hopefully, they can add a bullpen arm, or if they need to go out and get a starter, if Means or Bradish don't really come around, or whatever else they need, just one more piece. I feel like they've got enough depth in their minor league system and the willingness, I think, to execute a trade where they could probably add that extra starter, maybe not have to break the bank for it either. So I really like them going down the stretch. And then the only, I was close on the Houston idea in my bracket. I've got them taking on Seattle in their divisional round. I think that's going to be in a great matchup if it comes to be. I just feel like Seattle's coming with a little bit too much starting pitching this time around than they did when they had Robbie Ray give up that big blast to Yordan Alvarez. So I think they're still probably thinking about that loss. They still, still thinking about that whole series. And I think this team has enough grit within their core to get over the hump. And for me, I think it's going to be, a better year for Seattle. Maybe they can add a hitting piece or two at the break as well to make them a little bit more competitive. But essentially got Baltimore and Seattle lining up in the ALCS. And then in my NLCS, like you, I chose the Atlanta Braves. I think, if they're in the 2 seed, for example, I think they've got a really clear path to getting, straight to the championship series by taking on, the weakest wildcard team and whoever wins the NL Central. I think they could handle both of those teams, which would be, for me, at least the Diamondbacks. So I think they kind of bounce back from being an early exit last year. I think they've got, World Series under their belt recently, and they've got way too much talent to not, get it done. So, I've got the Braves as one of them. And then interestingly enough, I've got a wild card team that I'm very excited about. Love the top two in that rotation, like we talked about. They go on, they take the Dodgers on. I think they've got the better of the starters to kind of kick off that series. I think they ride that, and I think they knock off the Dodgers. In that first round will be the San Francisco Giants. I see this being a good year for them. I think, they'll have, I think, a very, deep team to get them through tough games this year. I think they play, good, aggressive baseball. They've got a lot of good on base guys, brought over some good free agents. Like this is a team that I think has, good mix of veteran presence and then, younger guys like Joey Bart, Marco Luciano. Like they've got some interesting, pieces for them to kind of, take them to the next level. And I again, that pitching staff to me is what's going to set it apart when we get to the postseason. And, I don't think they're done building too. They've got a very aggressive GM in Farhan Saidi. So this will be a lot of fun. And I guess the reason why I think the Dodgers, may fall back down again this year, like they have in years past, is I'm just really unsure who's going to be healthy for them when they get to October. Will they have Tyler Glass now? Will they have Walker Buehler? Will Kershaw be ready? Will James Paxton be there? I just don't know. And then, the way Yamamoto has looked in spring training and in his first, MLB start, he's just been getting shelled left and right. So, is he an ace, or when he comes over to the pros and in the MLB, like, is he more of like a mid to back end rotation type guy? Like, we just don't know yet. I mean, he's got, stuff that everyone talks about. He got that huge deal, but he's yet to show it. So, just lacking a little confidence there. So, just to repeat, I've got Atlanta and San Francisco in my NLCS.
I love it. No, I mean, hey, look, that Giants team, Giants teams in previous past, this is kind of like how been their MO is that they kind of just sneak up on you, right? Granted, they always had like a staple, somewhere to like a staple amount of players there, but Blake Snell, Logan Webb, like these are some, like I mentioned before, some of the best best pitching duo in all of baseball, or potentially can be. So you add in those players like Jung Hoo Lee in there as well, Chapman and Jorge Soler. It's like this team can definitely make a run potentially. So but yeah, with regards to Yamamoto, like there's certainly a lot of question marks, and then what's going to happen in the postseason, I think, is going to be the biggest thing. Oftentimes, sometimes we see like a player like Yamamoto, similar to Yu Darvish in previous years, maybe, not to say that they're all the same, but Yu Darvish like struggled, I think, in the playoffs there, and it took him a while to kind of just get used to or get more comfortable. So definitely just a bit different atmosphere in the playoffs. So, and then the Dodgers team sometimes, they just have struggled in the playoffs just in general. So something to look for. So definitely like the hot take. So we'll see if the Giants are able to, kind of persevere. And I have some good expectations for them, here. So, but yeah, that Dodgers team, like it can be interesting what happens to the playoffs. Again, if they get the wild card, but they win the World Series, I think everybody's, all Dodgers fans would love that, right? So it's definitely just going to see what happens at the end of the season there.
We shall see. How about your winners of your championship series, and then
Yeah.
your World Series and your World Series winner.
I'm gonna go with the Orioles there. And coming out of the AL, I just like the way that they're built. I think they got a lot of young moxie there, and part of me too just wants a team to kind of show up the Astros a little bit and like have a new team that just takes over with this young talent that they have there. I kind of always like it when you see a young team maybe go against a more experienced playoff team. Anyways, in the World Series, it kind of just gives a little bit of something a little bit different, right? So at least that's just my whole reasoning. I don't know if it totally makes sense. But yeah, I just want to see a different team that isn't the Astros kind of just persevere and take the reins there. And then yeah, I just don't feel strongly, obviously, with the Rangers obviously repeating here. At least I think we both do. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the Orioles coming out there. I think Corbin Burns, plays like as full of a season as he can, and then showcases what he can do in the playoffs here a little bit. And then coming out of the NL, I'm gonna go with the Braves. Got to go with the Braves here. Like what the Braves are doing again. Sometimes I think a team with the Braves, you kind of just need to get their butt kicked a little bit, thrown down, and then come to the next season with a chip on their shoulders. So I got the Braves taking this in the coming out of the NL for this season. Um, and I guess, hey, we can definitely talk about. I'll just say the World Series winner here. I got the Braves taking the World Series. I think they got the talent. They've always had the talent, but yeah, I think they just need that moxie, and I think they kind of take care of business with CJ or not CJ. I almost said CJ Strouder, but Spencer Strider over there. Being that dominant pitcher, kind of the playoffs. I know he's kind of struggled here and there, but I think a mixture of him, Max Fried, yeah, like I think they can definitely just do it. Fried with the experience, I think now with Strider having a little bit more of that touch of the playoff experience, I think maybe he does become a little bit more dominant. So hopefully he has that clutch gene in him. So, but yeah, he has the stuff. Love the moxie of the team. I think again, this team has won a World Series in previous past. I think they just need to get their butt kicked a little bit this season or this past season, and I think they take it here. So, Pat, I'll shut up now. Who do you got going to the World Series, and who do you got taking the championship?
Yeah, I've got the exact same situation and finish as you just laid out, which is super frustrating because last year we did a playoff preview and we both picked the same teams and the same winner. So I thought maybe, my picks were trying to be sneaky, and I really tried to bend it. Like I was trying to see a scenario where I actually believe San Fran could knock off Atlanta. Seattle knocking off Baltimore seems more feasible, but it's just, like you're saying, two teams that got their, teeth kicked in last year, just getting into the playoffs. Baltimore being kind of that new team. I was expecting them to have a quick exit, to be honest with you. And then Atlanta was just more, the first round bye is not really an excuse, but I just think they got outplayed and outclassed by, I believe it was the Phillies. But, Atlanta comes back with the same, if not a better team, which is just scary to say. And then Baltimore, the addition of Corbin Burns and then an extra year on all those prospects and actually getting Jackson Holiday probably to the pros. Like, this team is a lot of fun. They won 100 games last year. Like, if they have a big injury or two, like, I feel like they've got enough cushion there to, keep them competitive. And that's the same goes for Atlanta. But, when it comes down to Atlanta versus Baltimore, Baltimore is going to, progress pretty well for me. Like winning a couple of series in your, second real year of being a legitimate team, like that's a big feat. And I just think that Atlanta having that recent World Series and just enough talent there to get it done, like I just see them being the more confident team. I think they are the more talented team at this stage. But I think what it does for Baltimore just kind of sets them up for 2025 and onward, and could be a team that's winning a World Series very, very soon, if not this year.
Yeah, and I mean this Orioles team, man. Like, John Means, right? Like, if he's able, like, he's only played, I think, pitched like 6 games the past couple of seasons, right? But if you're able to get like something out of him, like he's definitely been good, a good solid pitcher for them, and I think that could be that I feel like that's the kind of pitcher you kind of want to have there going into the postseason in a way, right? Um, and I think he can definitely be an X factor. So that's kind of who I'm looking at, in terms of I guess, yeah, being instrumental for them to make a run in the playoffs, right? Having that veteran who's been around with the team, but has maybe some battles, some injuries here and there. But yeah, like they won 102 games basically without him last season, or 101 games without him last season. So if he's able to be there a little bit, I don't know, play half, maybe do the whole Chris Sale thing or something like that, play the second half of the season, like great, and I think that can be beneficial to them. So yeah, like I see that veteran type of pitcher who's been around a little bit. I feel like that would be great if he's able to play, somewhat of a full season, and obviously at the postseason there. So, but yeah, exciting team. I think this Orioles team is. It's just I think they can't win it all in the this first season. I just don't feel it for them in terms of this first, like, or I mean they were in the playoffs last season, but like a second turnaround here.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. So it's kind of crazy. We both ended up at the same scenario with the teams again, which is just funny. But hey, that's all right. Great minds think alike. I guess to round this off, we've got a handful of awards. We just go back and forth. Starting with the MVP for the American League and the National League. Who do you got for both leagues?
Yeah, MVP of the National League. I'm gonna go with Shohei's teammate there, Mookie Betts. It's interesting, right? I feel like Betts. I think he was like second, right, or something like that last season. Acuna obviously won it. I feel like Betts is gonna get on base a bunch, and then Shohei, he's still gonna be hitting there, not pitching this coming season, but I think he'll be knocking him in maybe a little bit more at a frequent pace. And I think Betts one of the best players out there, I feel like. So, and then, yeah, obviously Shohei, his value gets hurt a little bit since he's not going to be pitching. And I think that obviously helped him win those previous MVPs. So, Betts, I think for me, he's my favorite, I think, to win. I think the betting odds is two. I think he's either first or second there. So, and then out of the AL, I'm going to go with Julio Rodriguez. I think it just makes sense for me. Like, not too much offensive talent around him. I think playing for a competitive team there with the Mariners, he kind of just screams MVP in a way, right? Kind of like Derrick Rose, when he was playing with the Chicago Bulls, like the second leading scorer being like Luol Deng or like a Carlos Boozer, right? So that's kind of how I see it. Just immense talent with not too much around him. So, I think he's been like 20-20, 30-30 the past couple of seasons. What's to stop him from 40-40? Like, he's very much fully capable of doing that, and maybe he gets that, and that solidifies his MVP case there. So, but yeah, those are my MVP picks. I want to hear more about yours, Pat.
I have the same MVP picks as you do.
We need to coordinate
I'm not
and
kidding.
like not pick the same
Yeah,
ones.
no, but no, I think your Mookie Betts point makes sense because for me, I think there's only going to be natural regression for Ronald Acuna. Like, is he going to be inspired to hit 40 homers and steal 70 bags again? Like, I would think not, especially with a knee concern kind of coming into the year. That's something to keep an eye out for overall. Like, I don't think it's going to end his year, but it might slow him down on the base pass. Like, could we see more of like a 30-30 year? Like, that's probably maybe more likely. But when I think of Betts, just like you just mentioned, adding Otani to that roster, having Betts at the top of the order with Freddie Freeman there and all the other hitters they have, like, he's going to have the most opportunities to get on base. He's got a ton of power. He still steals bases, gets runs. Now he's playing shortstop. I think the voters will look at that to say, man, this guy made a positional change too. He's like an outfielder, a second baseman, a shortstop. Like, what else can he do? And I think that'll look really well on him throughout the year. Julio, like you said, this to me is like that it's like kind of almost like the manager of the year where it's like you just look at the guy who's got the least amount of talent around him and who's going to put up good enough counting stats to get attention. The one caveat I will bring to this is if the Yankees do make the playoffs this year, I think Juan Soto could be my MVP for the AL, and I am a little bit bearish on the Yankees' chances just as of right now, but I think Soto has the most impactful statistical year of any player in the American League.
Yeah, I mean Soto. I think it's Judge's favorite coming out of the AL, followed by Julio Rodriguez. But the same odds also for Julio Rodriguez is Juan Soto. Because yeah, Judge he's gonna get on base, and who's gonna hit him in? Juan Soto, like one of the just best overall hitters there. So he definitely can be. And then yeah, like you said, if the Yankees are winning, like that's gonna be one of the reasons is scoring a bunch of runs. And I think Juan Soto is gonna be kind of central to that, especially in that Yankee Stadium, the short right field. So that's going to be a goal of mine, I think, for Juan Soto there. And then yeah, with regards to the NL, that definitely is a thing too. With Mookie switching positions, it's like he gets more value. That his WAR is going to look a lot better. Granted, he plays like a decent shortstop, but everywhere he's been, he's played pretty decently defensively, and then has put up very MVP-ish numbers there. So if he continues that, like that's I think is going to be really great for his MVP case. And yeah, I don't know, it's hard to I think have those back-to-back MVPs when they're not Shohei Ohtani. So I feel like there always is that kind of like a shift from here to there. Especially if there is not necessarily that dominant type of MVP candidate. So, with respect to Ronald Acuna, but another thing on Acuna is that he's been injured, past couple of years too. So it's like, was pretty healthy this past year. Not to say he's gonna get hurt, but that's always something to consider too. Just player not playing a full season there. So, but yeah, I'm kind of also looking at some of the other odds here, some other maybe dark horses. I mean, Bobby Witt, that would be interesting. Like he had an amazing season last season, and I granted the Kansas City Royals aren't going to be doing much, but if he has like I don't know a 40, 50, or like a Ronald Acuna type of year over there, which very much capable of, like that can't be overlooked. And then yeah, like Adley Rutschman, he's here too. Gunnar Henderson. Yeah, as we talk more about that Orioles team, yeah, like those are some of the top young talented players there, and if one of them is able to do something there, then I think that totally makes sense. Yeah, I just doubt Shohei is going to be able to win MVP again. He'd have to hit like 50, 60 homers and then driving like 140 RBIs. I feel like just given the rest of the team that's around him, and we're definitely going to be looking at WAR, and I think Mookie's going to be the leader in WAR for that team there. So, yeah. So overall, yeah, I think those are our favorites. I think that makes sense. That's probably why we're relying on all that, much to possible viewer chagrin there. So
For sure. How about your Cy Youngs?
Cy Youngs, I'll do NL here. I got Spencer Strider. You know, I think for me it makes sense. I think last season, that was kind of I don't want to say it was like Strider's like breakout season necessarily. Like he's a very like talented and capable pitcher, but it definitely put more of him on the map, more of him as a household name for a dominant team throughout the MLB season. Strikeout machine. I think that's the big thing that a lot of people are gonna be looking at is just someone that's sheer dominance. Last season, obviously the ERA like definitely kind of took him down, and I think he gets a little bit better at just pitching. I think that's just the biggest thing. Like maybe he doesn't strike out as many hitters, but he just figures out ways to get outs, and maybe that helps his ERA a little bit. So I think that's what happens to him, and then obviously he's got the hitting squad behind him too. Maybe accumulate some wins. Especially if there's like a comparison between him and another pitcher that has very, very comparable numbers. But hey, look, wins sometimes I know it's more of the old school metrics, but sometimes it looks pretty good. I guess when you're comparing one pitcher to another there. So yeah, I got him there, and then I'm gonna go on a limb here uh, on the AL Cy Young here. I'm gonna go Corbin Burns. I think Corbin Burns, new team gets a little bit re-energized and everything, and maybe has like a Roy Halladay type of effect where it's like, oh, this is new. I'm gonna be playing for a team that's contending, and albeit it's gonna be at a really competitive division, but Corbin Burns has some of the best stuff in baseball, and for me, No, I mean, like if everything that's happening with Garrett Cole, if he misses time, like that's going to be some time off. He's not going to be able to, get a Cy Young resume here. So yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb, pick Corbin Burns. Great team, release some of the stress off of him of like trying to shut out the other squad, and is able to just pitch confidently, get outs, strike out a bunch of people, get some wins, have a low whip. I think all those things could happen for Corbin Burns there. So yeah, those are my Cy Young picks.
It sounds pretty good. Strider. I mean, I think with both, like these are probably your favorites and front runners to win both of those awards. Yeah, Strider's ERA was the only thing that held me back from choosing him. Not sure where he lands, where he'll fall throughout his career, ERA wise. Like maybe turns out to being, a two, three ERA type of guy. But I feel like Bartolo Colon, for example, like may have a year or so where he just kind of, maybe he's giving up too many home runs, too many walks, whatever it is, but he has just tons of strikeouts to back it up. Like we'll just have to see. I picked Zach Wheeler there. I think, signing an extension with Philly, he's been pretty comfortable there at the top of the rotation. He's been healthy the last couple of years. I feel like he's really put, his game together. I think he's just establishing that confidence as that rotational ace. Aaron Nola is kind of taking a back seat to him as like kind of that staff ace now at this point. So I just feel like he's going to have a good year. He's going to help lead Phillies to another big season for them. Who knows where they end up, but just felt confident enough to put him there, kind of as your alternative to Spencer Strider. And then the AL, don't have too many knocks on Corbin Burns either, like Strider. The only thing I would say is he's moving from the NL Central to the AL East. That could be a big change for him. I think he's still, one of the most elite pitchers in the game. I think that, it may just add a half point to his ERA, just kind of like making that move with the amount of talent that comes on the offensive side of the ball in that division. So we'll see how he copes with it, but I think his numbers will be good. I've got Luis Castillo winning the award for the Cy Young over in the, in this year. I think Castillo, now is pretty comfortable being out there. He's had, a good year with Seattle, at least last season. I think his numbers, are near the top for, most AL starters at this point. I mean, him, Gausman, Garrett Cole, they were kind of in the same range as one another. Cole separating himself just a bit, but yeah, to me, he's a comfortable choice. Like I have a little uncertainty of where Gausman's going to be this year with his arm. Pablo Lopez has had injury concerns in the past. He's had a couple good seasons now. I think he'll be definitely a contender with the AL Central being as weak as it is. But yeah, I just think that Castillo is kind of a safe choice for me and could be a guy who ends up taking the award.
Yeah, I like Castillo. I think that's a good pick, especially if the idea is, I think for both of us is that we're both kind of high in the Mariners, right? If Castillo, who's their ace, right? If he's able to kind of just lead the charge in that sense from the pitching standpoint, he's going to be the leader with regards to that. So, yeah, no, it totally makes sense. I'm looking at the odds too a little bit because that's my gambling habits kind of kicking in there. AL East, looks like we got Gossman as the favorite. Framber Valdez second, or tied, I should say, with Corbin Burns. Tariq Skubal is next, actually. Cole Reagans as well. He's a 900 plus. And then plus 1,000, that's where Luis Castillo is, along with his teammate then afterwards,
Wow.
George Kirby as well. So, yeah, no, totally possible. Maybe bet on those odds if you're, put your money where your mouth is a little bit there. But I could definitely see that happening. Again, he's been one of the best pitchers in the past couple of years and had a good season last season. So why not continue on to this season, right? So I think that totally makes sense there.
Yeah.
Then
Where
yeah,
does Pablo Lopez fall in that?
yeah,
Sorry.
no, interesting. I think he's like kind of eyeballing it. I think he's like eighth here, plus 1,500. So actually,
Whoa.
yeah, George Kirby and both Luis Castillo have better odds than Pablo Lopez. Yeah, so interesting. Yeah, I mean, Pablo Lopez like had a tremendous, I think, postseason last season, right? So and overall good season too. Like
That's a great bet.
I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, who won that trade with Luis Arias and Pablo Lopez?" Like, I feel like both of them kind of won, but obviously when you have a ace starting pitcher,
Hmm.
that helps. So, yeah, Pablo Lopez plus 15, like that can definitely be some. Or yeah, Luis Castillo for you, like those, I think are pretty good odds there. And then NL Strider leader plus 450. Zach Wheeler, he's second here actually at plus 800. So kind of like what you were saying there. And then Logan Webb, Yamamoto, Zach Galen, and then Max Fried to kind of round it off there. So yeah, interesting kind of takes there on I think both Cy Young races there. It's definitely one of those. I feel like anybody can kind of win it here now, and yeah, so place your bets.
For sure. No, I mean, that AL Central, I think a lot of those pitchers are going to have good years this year, just looking at the competition and the hitting for a lot of those clubs. So you talked about Reagan, Skubal on that list. Like, I think those are a lot of guys that are going to play, really well this year, at least from the pitching side of things. So, yeah, we'll just have to see. But how about your rookies of the year?
Yeah, rookies of the year at the NL. Yeah, I guess I got to go with Yamamoto. Yeah, I understand the early, preseason struggles or spring training struggles. Yeah, maybe this part is just getting out the nerves, understanding the hitters a little bit, like all that. So, but yeah, you can't argue with the stuff. It's going to get better, I feel like, just as he gets more comfortable and understands the game a little bit here. So, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead, go on the limb here, pick Yamamoto for NL Rookie of the Year. And then for the AL, yeah, I'm gonna play the favorite here. I'm gonna go Jackson Holiday. I think he's just not gonna have as much pressure, right, as maybe some other rookies since he has such a talented squad around him. He's like, all right, I'm just gonna focus on hitting and getting on base and playing decent defense. Great. And yeah, ultra talented kid, obviously, son of Matt Holiday over there too. So he knows kind of the game, has been around the game, and I think he forces here. So, yeah, I'm gonna say Jackson Holiday is as my AL Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, both are solid choices. Wondering where Yamamoto falls, this year in terms of his abilities versus his performance. Like, I'm just, yeah, so far hasn't been great, but again, it is spring training. Guys have overcome much worse things in their careers to be the stars they're supposed to be. So I think he should be a good contender for that award. I've got Jung Hoo Lee in the NL as my rookie of the year. I think that his skills will play very well. Just being kind of a on base, you know, uh, type of guy. We'll see how his outfielding skills play in the majors. I think they talked about him being more of a corner outfield type, but he will have the cavernous center fielder roam out there in AT&T Park. But no, I think he'll be atop a really good order this year. It's an improved offense. I think he'll get on base a ton. I think he'll, show his skill set. Could he hit 15, 20 home runs? Like, it's possible. We'll just have to see, how his power plays, especially in a tough park like in San Fran. But no, I think he's just going to have a really, well-rounded year, and it'll show out, for him in that sense. In the AL, tough pick. I love Jackson Holiday. I'm going to go with Wyatt Langford. I think that everything I've seen in the spring with his power, looking at his minors numbers versus Jackson Holiday's, these are the same type of players. Like, they are going to walk more than they strike out. Really high average guys, OBP guys. I just think Wyatt Langford brings a little bit more power than Jackson Holiday does, and it could be in the realm of like a 30 home run season. I hope they bring him up on the roster right away. I hope he plays all year. We'll just have to see how it plays out. They do have a vacancy at DH, even though I'm sure they want to play him out in the outfield somewhere. So we'll just have to see. But I think he'll acclimate himself to the pros quickly and kind of be a star right from the get go.
Yeah, no, those are great picks. I mean, yeah, a lot of people want to just pick the favorites and all that because of all the, I guess, the hoopla that both those guys get. So, yeah, we'll just have to see, I think, with regards to who could potentially win that. Another name, I guess, some other, as I'm talking about like dark horses and such, Paul Skeens, I think, is one. Obviously comes with a lot of flair. being number one overall pick this past year. But you know, I'm also looking at the betting odds. He's like number 8 or might be like number 9 or something like that too. So plus 1800. You're talking about a guy that throws 100, like no expectations whatsoever. What's happening there in Pittsburgh? But like, yeah, like we mentioned before, like that NL Central, there's not too much hitting. I mean, there's some pretty decent hitting, I would say, but like compared to say the NL West, right? With the Dodgers and such, it's like you can get by with that. So yeah, and he's got some nasty stuff, so that could be something to look forward to, especially if you're not bullish on Yamamoto or some of those other players. So that's definitely one over there. And then looking at the AL a little bit, obviously Evan Carter, he got a lot of. I guess he's still qualified as a rookie, but he was batting like 3 in that in the championship run over there for the Rangers, so he can definitely get some of that. And maybe there is a little bit of back and forth between him and Wyatt Langford a little bit. Kind of looking at some other ones, running it off. Junior Caminero, Colt Keith as well, Nolan Chanul. Yeah, I think those are some of the other ones, dark horses there. But yeah, Jackson Holiday, Yamamoto, I think those are the 2 favorites for AL and NL for the betting odds here too.
Gotcha. Yeah, that would make sense. How about your managers of the year?
Managers of the year. This is always a fun one. And I don't know. I always like trying to figure out who could potentially be the manager of the year. And like you were saying before, it's kind of like a team that is they're kind of good. They look a little bit good. Maybe they're a little bit young and they have some upside, and then that's the idea. But I'm gonna go a little bit unconventional, I think, in terms of how I kind of go about this. Out of the AL, I think that there are some things with regards to this team that we're talking about. Of you know, uh, are they going to, from the offensive standpoint, they don't necessarily have all the explosive talent. They have like one great piece and then several maybes on there. Is the Seattle Mariners. I think Scott Service. I'm going to pick him as my AL manager of the year. I think going into the season, I think they could potentially win 90 games plus, and I think that can definitely push Scott Service to win manager of the year. I think that's going to be much more impressive, in my opinion, than kind of like anything that the AL Central can do. If either the Guardians or the Tigers, if any of them kind of surpass expectations a little bit there, it's because it's a very winnable division, and with respect to was it Stephen Voigt and then also AJ Hinch, it's like someone's gonna win that eventually or finish second. Great, golf clap. But in terms of if the standings kind of ended like how both of us picked with maybe the Astros first, but then the Mariners and then ahead of the Rangers, like I think that's a great story there. I think that was just goes to show the great managing that Scott Service has been doing, and I see them obviously taking that next step. I think with it in this next coming year. And then coming out of the NL, and this is definitely going to be a fun one because it is kind of like, in a way, it does feel a little bit dirty because it's kind of like how we all kind of decide on Dan Campbell, I think, to win Coach of the Year this year. Is that they were, the Lions were favored to win the division, right? And guess what? Also, the Cubs, in my NL Manager of the Year pick here, they're also predicted to win the division. But compared to where they were last year, it was a little bit different story. So I'm still going to go with Craig Counsell here. I think it makes sense, I guess, from my perspective. I think they won like 80 some odd games, like low 80s last season, and I think they get into the 90s, potentially like 95 wins this season. So I think that's a good. I think that gets enough praise, I think, for Craig Counsell there. With respect to potentially some of the other NL Central managers, I think any of them, could potentially make a run at the manager of the year, just because this division I feel like is just very vulnerable to kind of whomever winning it. So, but those are my picks.
It sounds pretty good. I don't have a bone to pick with either, to be honest with you. I have a different NL Central champ. So with that, I'm going to take their manager, David Bell. We'll see what happens. I mean, I feel like this Reds team has a wide range of outcomes that it could face this year. We're looking at a younger rotation. I'm interested in a lot of those pieces. I think some of the veteran depth they have to back that up is interesting enough to get them over that hump. And then I also think their GM is aggressive enough to maybe supplement that if it's needed. Love what they have around the diamond. Wish they didn't have injuries, but I think they somehow, some way hold it all together, pull through, win that division, which they don't typically do. So I think it'll get attention from the press, and I think David Bell will be a benefactor of that. In the AL, just staying true to my rankings and who's getting in the playoffs. The Cleveland Guardians get in. I mean, for me, it is Stephen Vogt that will get that award because it's untraditional. It's the unconventional pick. It's a team that shouldn't be there kind of thing, and it'll be that very feel good type of story for a low budget small market team like Cleveland to be back in the playoffs. And that rotation, I'm telling you, if they stay healthy, it is one of the most competitive rotations in the game. And I don't know, like I'm just seeing it. I'm just seeing it, and hoping that the offense can put enough together to keep them, good enough throughout the year. But I think they'll really push the Twins this year. And I have them, going in with a wild card spot. I'm a little bit. I lack a little confidence in them winning a wild card because the AL Central usually doesn't have those. But yeah, with the AL East kind of being in flux a little bit, and the Rangers having their own pitching issues, like I'm gonna give it to them. So we'll see how it goes.
Man, you gotta put your money where their mouth. Yeah, he's number third there in the AL. Yeah, behind AJ Hinch and Matt Quintana. Yeah, Quintana over there too. So, yeah, third place I think there, and then yeah, NL Craig Counsell is first, but then yeah, David Bell is second. I think that totally makes sense because I think the manager of the year it definitely goes to that team that surpasses expectations. And yeah, both Central divisions, man, they're a little bit on the kind of up for grabs. So yeah, it's almost too predictable. But I definitely would love to see a David Bell manager of the year because hey, that also means the Cubs don't maybe come to fruition as much as possible as a lot of people seem. So that could be definitely fun, and would love to see the Reds also just kind of come more into prominence, because I feel like that's just fun for them.
Yeah. Not sure if it's a thing, but if there is a bet you can place on an NL Central manager winning that award, I would just make that bet. And like, I don't even know if that's a thing, but like, I'm almost so certain that the NL Central champs manager will win the award that I would put money on it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's kind of how it's set up, honestly. Like they're all like the top there. So I if I'm I guess the underwriter of this whole thing, I'm like, why would I do that? But no, I get it. I get it. It just makes sense. Like, yeah, if the Dodgers, win like her have the most wins, right? Nobody's gonna care. So but yeah, people are gonna care, yeah, if, like the Pirates, right? If they surpass expectations and win the division, like something like that would be crazy. So but yeah, I agree. I think with regards to that outlook, just seems like both central teams, like or central divisions, whoever wins those divisions, manager of the year is going to be an award that they can be looking forward to.
For sure. Well, this has been a longer episode here for the MLB. Wayne, do you have any thoughts overall before we kind of close it up?
Man, I'm just excited for the weather to get a little bit warmer, for us to go all outside, enjoy a nice beverage, enjoy Polish sausage or a hot dog and everything. Cause man, winter, even though this was a mild winter in Chicago, it just sucks sometimes. And it's just nice to get out, get my pasty skin a little bit darker, and also very much looking forward to spring, summer, and then fall baseball, man. Nothing beats it, I feel like.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. This year's gonna be so much fun. I'm looking at just a mix of different types of rosters. We got some big, powerhouse juggernaut favorites, and then just sprinkled in are just like a lot of young teams looking to take that next step, and maybe missing a phase of the game or two like within their teams, but like last year proved with the Rangers and D-backs in the World Series, anything's really possible. And just seeing what the team could look like from the start to the finish, like it's gonna be a lot of fun. So hopefully there's a lot of more deals to come. Hopefully there's some surprises too. I hope we're not right in our predictions. I hope there really is like some madness that takes place. But like you said, looking forward to getting back, you know, on the in the stands, on the field myself, like just playing ball or whatever. But hoping to get to some games this year. And the first one I am going to go to is in Milwaukee, so I will be going to a opening weekend game against the Mariners, which should be pretty fun. So we'll be sure to kind of report back on that front. But yeah, that's my 2 cents for baseball. I guess, folks, if you're still around, leave us a like, comment on anything you've heard. Let us know if you have a different divisional winner, different award winner of any kind. Please, slam our picks or our final World Series choices, all you'd like, and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate it. It really helps move us forward. Trying to get to 1,000 subs is our first goal, but wherever else you may be at, leave us a review, follow us on social media where you can find us. And with Wayne, I'm Patrick, and we'll be back for the Ball and Breakfast podcast.